little bit what Adam was saying, just to make sure you're validating the emotions around just the unknown. And yeah, like he's saying, I think these are older kids and you need to be realistic about what probably is going to happen. But not knowing doesn't feel good and doesn't feel good to you either. And that it's really disappointing. And it's a big deal to them. And I think you need to validate that and then, process those emotions and then try to focus a little bit about what you could do, like Adam is saying. But really spend some time validating that it's this whole thing is it's not how it was supposed to be and it doesn't feel good.
All right,
I can add to the sleepaway camp. I had spoken to someone who runs a camp, and they also said part of the issue is the visa programs because they take a lot of foreign counselors, and there's no visas being issued right now. So I just figured I'd add that.
Yep. That's helpful. I think there's also a lot of questions about what will and won't happen. And I think we have to have those realistic discussions as much as we can without knowing. I had something signed up for in August that was just canceled on me that I was really looking forward to. There are things that are going to be canceled. We may not have our summer. And then how do we handle that grief that we may experience because those things also don't happen? Maybe our children's, sporting, whether it's baseball or lacrosse or whatever, gets canceled. How do you then begin to process that? I'm going to read the next question. My younger child was worried she would have to repeat 5th grade. I told her the work she's doing now is helping her complete all the stuff she needs to learn to be ready for 6th grade. Is that right? And there was another question here about repeating. Are they going to have to repeat?
Again, I'll take a first crack at that. The answer is no. Nobody's going to have to repeat, so we don't have to worry about that. We're providing the experience for them so that they'll finish the grade they're in. And there was a question about summer school. This is a bigger question, which I don't have an answer to yet. The Board of Trustees will have to weigh in on this as well. If there's a chance of us getting back to school in early May, there could be the optionality of adding a few weeks on in the end. By that, I mean in June, to try to capture a little bit of time. If we're coming back for a week in the end of May, I'm not sure that makes much sense. If we're not coming back, we're not going to start school in July. I think you can be pretty confident that July will not be involved with schooling. And then we can reassess our start dates, although I still feel pretty committed to that late August start date for the high school and right after Labor Day for the rest of the school.
Okay. The next question is, this is Logan's mom, Martha. My boys don't seem to be phased, but I am prone to anxiety and don't want to put those vibes out. But holding it in doesn't work either.
Agree.
Laura, you want to jump in?
Got to talk with your friends, your neighbors with your 6 feet, obviously, or reach out to any one of us and talk. I mean, there's so much research that shows that if there's a calm and reassuring adult in a child's life, the children are very resilient. And so it kind of puts it right back onto us to a degree. And I think that it's intentional in terms of how you handle your own anxiety in front of your kids and the ways that that work for you to handle your anxiety. I think I said this last week. Make sure that your kids are hearing you process that out loud. If when you're anxious, going for a walk kind of calms you down, let them hear you say that, hey, feeling a little anxious, I'm going to go for a walk, or whatever it is that works for you, so that they start to make those connections.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you want to role model is not that you're not anxious. I think that would not be fair. I think what you really want to role model is how do you handle your anxiety? So for example, if you handle your anxiety by taking the bottle of wine out and pouring yourself a drink, that's what you're role modeling. But if you can role model it through effective coping strategies and even talk out loud to your children about them, they begin to learn and pick up on the ways that you handle it. And to me, there's nothing more important than that. So I wouldn't try to say that you're not or pretend that you're not. I would say that you are, but this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm handling it and this is what I'm working on. So I think that's the way to go with that. So you're teaching instead of just demonstrating anxiety. The next question is, Junior Olympics, water polo, probably canceling, hoping just postponed. Students in high school can find online courses to take in summer if too much free time. Okay, great comment. Thank you. If I for any reason skip your question, just send it back to me. So the next one says, the screen time now becomes almost all day for my kids. Do you have any suggestions or advice on how to make them active and cut down unnecessary screen time? Are there some projects that they can do at home using hands after school hours, like art or photography? The kids react to school projects with more enthusiasm than from their own parents.
Well, I'll say that this is a tough one. We are fully aware that the kids, the teachers, us, we're all spending way too much time looking at screens. Our daily messages to the kids have been, in all the seminar classes, we talked about daily routines, and our comment back to them was, how are you using that 15, at the high school level this is, the upper school, how are you using those 15 minutes in between classes? How are you using that half-hour break? How are you using your lunchtime? Try to do anything but look at your screen. They gravitate toward video games, which has a real benefit in this moment because they're with their friends and they're doing something together. I know you all know that, but we got to get them away from their screens. We've been telling them, Mr. Helstein and Turner, Tim Helstein and Will Turner have been putting on a lot of athletic videos for students to follow along that they can do. They can do a good workout right in their living room or bedroom. It's a challenge. We've got the art kids doing art projects. Rick Colombo delivered clay to everybody's house who's in a ceramics class, and we'll do more of that as need be. But lastly, and I don't want to talk too much here, but we're getting the kids involved in what we're calling passion projects in the upper school. And it's sort of an idea that comes from an article that Mr. Doherty wrote with Lauren Waller's father, who's the president of Beloit College. And part of those passion projects should involve some non-screen time, hands-on, mucking around with food or doing something in the garden or getting some physical activity and reaching out to others. So we're trying to plan some things that don't always require them to be on the screen.
And I could add to that, Chris. Anthony Rinaldi, who's our great chef over at the upper school, he put out a video to the faculty of making homemade pasta, how to do it. And he's going to start creating those for children and family, talking about the chemistry of food. So that would be something they could be doing in the afternoon, or some project that families can do together, is cooking together, because we're all home, we're all with each other.
Can I ask a question? Are there any PE teachers or someone who could do maybe a 15-20 minute workout in the middle of the day or end of the day? iPads outside or something?
I can add to that because I spoke to Tim Helstein today about this, and we had in our admin meeting, we spoke about this the other day, of creating a 30-minute block that is outside of the teaching realm, that is totally optional for children and for families, but something that 6th, 7th, and 8th graders could do together, some physical activity. Unfortunately, once again, it's in front of a dumb screen where we're spending our lives now, but it's them doing an activity together. The sports teams are starting to do that in the high school. Tim Helstein's going to put together 3 o'clock to 3:30. If you want to come and work out with Mr. Turner or with me, we'll do some live, we'll do some recorded. And I know the lower elementary and the upper elementary, which is really looking for this right now, they're putting that in place as well.
Next week, middle school will also, we've done a couple little social gatherings for the kids, which again are all on screens throughout the week this week, and are beginning to plan the ones that we'll be doing next week and the following. And one includes, I know we're going to plan to do another dance party, and also Jen Denali is planning to facilitate some live yoga classes. I think she has 2 planned for next week. In addition to those, there are the resources from the PE and athletic staff that we've already shared that can be plugged right into that sort of get up and run around time block that we build into the middle school schedule. I saw a comment on the sidebar about kids being more responsive to the school's direction for them to be busy with certain things than perhaps their parents. and we kind of had an eye towards that when we put our schedule together. So things like chores and mindfulness and even the study hall in the evening time. We're asking faculty not to go much beyond the 30 to 40 minutes a day of instruction and teaching that they're limited to. And so that might mean that a kid in their 30-minute class doesn't finish everything, and they'll have some things during that study hall window in the evening to circle back to and complete. But we hope that kids aren't spending extra time beyond the school day on their screens for the sake of continuing to be productive academically. We hope that that is really limited to the school day itself, so that outside of the academic time, they can, in some cases, some of the boys are still going to want to get on video games, boys and girls, but mostly the boys will want to get on video games. That'll be how they socialize. And parents will have to control that and make sure that they're also picking up the books they want to read or the instruments that they want to play and doing some of the things that are not so electronic. But please do feel free to use that schedule as a tool and scapegoat the middle school and say, you know, I'm looking at this schedule. Mr. Corson says it's time to do this thing, and put us on the hot seat.
Great. The next question is, I have been giving my kids space with their online learning. Besides nightly chats about what did you do online today, don't know much about what they're doing in their separate rooms on their computers. Should I be monitoring more? Great
Can I
question.
respond to that from the middle school?
Yeah, please.
I think it's I mean, every kid's workspace is going to look different. It depends on the home that they're growing up in and what kind of workspace they have, how many other people are at home right now. And so to every extent possible, giving a kid a semi-private environment for them to be productive on schoolwork is best. And so for some, that just means a table in a certain room. And for others, it might be their own bedroom where they have a desk. In whatever case, I don't think that parents should be right over their shoulders all day long or throughout the day, but periodically checking in to make sure that they are being accountable to the things that have been assigned and not distracted by whatever else the technology can make available to them. And also ensuring, and here's where the schedule comes in again, that they're transitioning between things, that it's possible for all of us to get to work on something and then not want to stop until it's over, until we're done with that task. But we want to make sure that kids every 25 to 30 minutes, according to their schedule, are transitioning from one activity to the next activity. And so checking in with them periodically, not making sure that they're observing every transition, because you'll drive them nuts and that will drive you nuts. But periodically checking in and making sure that they are transitioning and moving between subjects, moving through their day in the way that the day is outlined.
I'd also like
Is it
to,
fair to say that their advisor will be in touch with the parent if we're really finding there's a slip here? You're going to know, and then you can kind of adjust how much you are monitoring or not monitoring.
and I wanted to say, I'm not sure if parents are even aware of it, but we do have a pretty sophisticated filtering system that any certain words will trigger an email to us that they've all been benign thus far. Kids doing normal stuff that comes across as, get tricked a certain word, but so we are monitoring that. So if your kids are doing what they shouldn't be doing on the computer, that will show up with us. And, our counselors are the front line of kind of guiding that right now.
Yeah, and my only other thought to this is that the types of questions that you ask at the dinner table about the work that they've done that day is important. So avoid yes or no questions, because we know that 6 through 12 they give you my favorite answer, which is fine, nothing, right? And so asking them questions about details of what they're doing and not did you do your work makes a big difference. So ask the right questions. So think of some questions beforehand that you can ask that will involve actually digging deep and answering. If you don't, you're going to get the typical fine, great, nothing, and that's usually not super helpful for what we're looking for. The next one is, any thought about fall when the new school year starts? Dr. Fauci said there's a possibility that the virus might come back in the fall after high temperatures are gone. Would GCDS faculty, students handle more remote learning? Would students eventually have or be in the right level of education when all is back to normal? So I don't know if
Yeah,
that's an Adam question.
Yeah, I'll start with that. I mean, one of the teachers in our upper elementary offhandedly said, in some ways, a silver lining of a pandemic is it's asked us to recalibrate and rethink curriculum and pedagogy in a way that we haven't challenged ourselves to think. I would be shocked if there's not some form of remote learning that will be part of our world going forward for a long time. And so if we had to toggle back to some forms of remote learning in a year from now, we'd be able to do it. This could be the end of snow days for kids, for all I know. I mean, we could roll out remote learning on a snow day. Wouldn't that be awful? So I do think there's some positioning which will come over time. But our kids, the one thing that I can promise you is that your kids are going to be, in terms of curricular preparedness, skill development, ready to stay on track and online for the normal progression at whatever grade they're in and the next grade that they're going to. That's what we are focused on, and that's something that we are going to be able to deliver. And the interesting part is there's a lot of changes that are happening in the college landscape, like daily. There's a website which will tell you about colleges that have moved to test optional application processes. 4 colleges have been at that less than last 8 hours. That's going to continue to change. Exams are going to be moving into online. You know, some of these standardized tests are going to be moving into online. Change is so significant that we're going to do our best to keep up with it. But I think we're perfectly positioned to make sure your kids are ready to be wherever they need to be as we collate all this new information.
Great. Next question is, might it be worthwhile to generate a summer packet for this period that could be printed once and completed offline?
Remember, this message came from a lower elementary or upper elementary. They missed that one.
Yep. So it's right.
Yeah,
So
younger kids.
We'll skip that one because that's right. Okay.
I mean, you can jump into it if you want to, Polly.
The only thing I'd add, Bridie, sorry, hi, nice to see you, is that I know Jackie and Trudy, all the teachers, we've really been very mindful about the balance of the screen time, keeping it developmentally appropriate for the age, and then also giving kids things to do, pencil and paper. I think teachers have been very vocal about making sure that happens, developing a specific packet for kids. I know there are pockets where that has happened, but if you have specific questions regarding your cute kiddos, I would ask you to reach out to their teachers or to Jackie or Trudy more specifically.
Thank you. Adam, this is probably a question for you too. When do you foresee making a decision as to whether the students will be coming back to campus?
We're gonna follow the advice of probably powers that are higher than us. When the governor tells us that April 30th is now a new go forward point for him to make decisions, we'll wait to hear what he says. If he extends that to say May 30th, then that's gonna direct our decision making process. So as much as I'd like to prognosticate on what I think that will be, I have no idea. as I said in the little video we put out this morning, we're going to plan to try to come back at some point in the spring. We're going to be ready to welcome kids back in a safe environment. And at the same time, the realist in us says that's probably not going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, we're going to be prepared to continue to offer great experiences for the kids for as long as we have to.
Thank you. I feel like remote learning is asking kids to develop totally different or more evolved executive function skills. If you have 15 minutes between classes, you have to do a lot more to keep track of time passed or to remember when your next Zoom class starts. Do you have any advice for us on how to guide them with this, or there be some teaching instruction on this? What Flynn is saying about transitioning relates to this.
Well, I'll start, because I think, that is our model at the upper school in the mornings, that the classes are scheduled for 30 minutes. We don't have the expectation that the teacher is running that class synchronously for the full 30 minutes. In some cases they are, in some cases it's 10 minutes, get you started, and then I'm here for you as questions come up, and I'll pop in and check how your small groups are working. But those 15 minutes could either be an extension of what they're doing for the 30 minutes before, but ideally that's a time when they get up, go down, as Flynn said, go down and ask your mom or dad, how could I help? What chore could I quickly do? Could you do a lap around the driveway or something to get a little fresh air, get away from the screen? Can you do 25 push-ups and keep track of them so that you're measuring that day to day? So far in the upper school, we've had great attendance, and we've had almost nobody showing up late. And we've got a big tracking document going that, if anything, our communication's even improved, because we've been immediately jumping on person X showed up 5 minutes late for my class, and all the other teachers say, oh, but he or she's been on time every time for my class, so maybe that's a one-off. I would encourage the kids to use that other than staring back at their screens, and maybe they need to set a timer for themselves. Maybe they need to have their calendar give a little ding when it's 5 minutes before the next class is going to start. They can all do these things, and I think it's training them in a good way.
And I'm pretty impressed with how I teach 3 classes, and everyone shows up on time, ready to go. And we check with the teachers. We have a role who misses class, who showed up late, who seemed disengaged. We're trying to track all that going through, and the students are getting there on time. It is a strange 15-minute period, but hopefully it gets you a chance to get away from your computer screen, to get a drink, to get a snack, to go to the bathroom, and then focus back in for a half hour. Part of the children's issues when we took a survey from them, like we did from you, is that some of the classes are running over, and that sort of impedes their time and their planning that's going there. And that's a good one for us to go back and talk to the teachers too. And one of the reasons we created that 15 minutes was, if something does run if we had one class going from 9:15 to 9:30 or 9:45, and the next one going 9:45 to 10:15, that's no time for them to get any room in between. So we thought the break time was a good time for them. But the children are feeling that struggle as well. They see their break and they want that 15 minutes.
Saskia, from middle school, the passing time between classes is less, and that's just so that they can put some stuff away, get some stuff out, as I said in the comment margin. But the bigger question about sort of executive functioning and kids having to generate a new host of executive functioning skills, we're definitely seeing that in the middle school and trying to be really proactive about what skills they're developing, what new skills they're developing, and how. For example, we didn't account for at the beginning of the week the amount of inbox traffic that Google Classroom notifications would cause. And so kids' inboxes are being flooded with email that isn't even really substantive. It's just notifications from Classroom. And so they'll get a video later today that will show them how in their emails to build a filter, a separate box for each class into which those Classroom notifications will be dropped, which will create some real estate for the more substantive messages to land and be seen in the inbox. Once they know how to do that, then they're becoming more functional and more proficient in managing their email. Likewise, over the weekend, we've got some training to do with faculty to get them ready to rely on Google Calendar differently with students than we currently are, especially for the synchronous Zoom meetings. And then as soon as the faculty are ready, which should be by the end of the day tomorrow, students will have a tutorial over the weekend to take so that they are beginning to manage their calendars and live out of their Google calendars to know when and where they're supposed to be and how to find links and things. So in terms of their resource management, executive functioning, there is definitely a whole new set of skills that we're finding kids need. And this has provided a great opportunity for us to, give them a crash course in those, and all of them are transferable. They'll hang on to them.
Yeah, no, Flynn, I hear you and I feel really heard by you. And I think that the middle schoolers probably need that instruction maybe more urgently. We might assume that the high schoolers have a lot of those skills already, but I think the kids have been doing a phenomenal job, and I think the teachers have been doing a phenomenal job so far. But I just feel like, me popping my head in and saying, hey, it's, are you supposed to be on a class right now, is not quite as good as having maybe some, like what you're saying, this instruction coming out from the middle school, I think is really valuable. And also for the teachers or the administration to let the high schoolers know that actually your attendance, your attention, and your tardiness is being monitored. And like, it's not, I don't know. I think what you're describing, Flynn, is great. And I think that the high schoolers could probably benefit from a little bit of focused instruction.
And redundant systems are important too. And so, I think that we're all like learning from each other and picking up new skill sets, and the same as it helps to put multiple things in multiple places for kids. It's helpful for the adults too. Really what we're trying to manage and where we're finding that they need these new skills is when they're feeling overwhelmed. And I know that the purpose of this forum is for us to really stay focused on their resilience, their mental health, their happiness, how they're feeling, how we're all doing. And it's amazing how closely connected that
they interrelate.
Their emotional experience.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think, just jumping on that too, and for those of you who know me, know I can talk for an hour about executive functions. And the bottom line is this, is that we know that from a brain development place, they're not even close, right? The kids aren't even close to getting there. But I look at it from two different pieces. One is, do they not have the skill, or do they have the skill and don't perform it? So those are two very different pieces. If they don't have the skill, we need to teach it. So if we're asking them to do brand new things with technology, we have to teach them how to use that technology. We shouldn't expect them to know how to do it if we haven't taught them it. On the other side of it, there are a lot of kids who have the skill, but they don't perform it. Teaching them the skill, again, doesn't make any sense. It would be like saying to them, take your shoes off when you come in the house. They already know how to do it. They know how to untie their shoes. They know the rule. They know everything. And then you ask them why they didn't do it, and they all give you my favorite answer, which is, I don't know. That's different than a skill deficit. So if they have a performance deficit, it's what are the thoughts, what are the questions they need to be asking themselves in order to perform it? So Saskia, what you could, instead of saying, hey, aren't you supposed to be in class right now? You're actually being their prefrontal. I would say, don't do that. I would say, ask them a question like, hey, any idea what I'm going to ask you right now? Which then forces them to do the thinking rather than you doing the thinking for them. Hey, why am I standing in your doorway right now? Oh my God, I'm supposed to be in my class. Right, good. And then later on, it's like, what are the questions you need to be asking yourself so that that doesn't happen again? And that's the difference between a skill deficit and a performance deficit. And we have to get them to have the independence to think that way. And by the way, until they're 21 for females, and I'm not even going to say the age for men, they're not going to be there. And yeah, men are 28, 27, 28, something like that, maybe older. Some people would probably argue, but anyway, my executive functions just took me completely off task. Here's our next question.
Can I just jump in for one quick second here?
Yeah,
I want
please.
to tell you one quick story that happened with a student yesterday, because I think it underlies the emotional strain that some kids may be going through, which may manifest itself in bad executive functioning or
Yep.
snappiness with their siblings or parents or whatever. The kid missed advisory, and I wrote to the student and said, "Hey, you didn't make it to advisory." And the student had a small headache, had lay down for a little bit to rest, fell asleep, and was convinced that the student had coronavirus. Student's totally fine today, 100% fine, but that's going through. So a little headache, immediately thought, I've got the virus. You know, what matters more at that point in that kid's life? Lying down and taking a rest and talking to someone, or making it to that next math class on time. These are pretty extraordinary times. And my message to the teachers, to the students, to all of us is like, if there's ever a time when we want to cut each other a little slack, this is the time. This is the time to be real patient with each other. Some of these things are not lifelong things. They're just a reaction to a really rough situation.
Wow, Chris, thank you. I mean, I'm so happy you told that story, and it really brings us back to what's super important for us. And it just made me think, Chris, that in terms of brain functioning, your prefrontals all in the front part, you know, all these executive functions are right here. As soon as we get nervous or anxious, all the blood that's in our prefrontal leaves. So if we're anxious or upset, the blood that we need for our prefrontal to work is gone. And so if we already have an underdeveloped prefrontal and we're anxious, we are so much more vulnerable to making these mistakes. So Chris, thank you for pointing that out. Here's our next question. Are the teachers monitoring their work? This is middle school. My kid seems to breeze through everything and is done by 11. He says he is doing it all. I think he probably needs more stimulation. I know we have your recommended schedule, but unless there is accountability, he won't do it. Can we get some more outside projects assigned?
Hey Jeff, if you scroll down in the chat bar, I responded to that
You're
question.
ahead of me?
There were a couple others that were sort of more academic related that I tried to provide responses to.
All right, so for the rest of you, go ahead and scroll through that chat, because Flynn's ahead of us, overachiever.
If I may, I want to jump in and send another message, which is one that'll probably be controversial and hard for some of you to maybe accept. I'm thinking about several of our teachers who have their own young children at home. They can't hire childcare. They can't have their parents come and help them out. They are trying incredibly hard to balance the need to guide their own children in their remote learning, and be attentive, be part of our schedule and available to our kids. And what's going to end up happening, and this is of no fault of anybody's, but the reality is that the way your child interacts with certain teachers is going to look a little different. Teachers are going to have a little more, they're not going to be lockstep. Like, Mr. Colombo is doing it this way, everybody has to do it this way. Not everybody can do it that way right now. So we're struggling with that a little bit. And again, that's an area where we need a little patience. Some teachers, they're all working incredibly hard. And there's only so many hours in a day. And a lot of them are struggling to keep up with returning the kids' work in the same timely fashion that they had in the past, because they have a lot of responsibilities. And they feel terrible about that. They hate that they're in that situation and can't give 100% to both responsibilities. So Rick has been great about lining up people to step in and help when we can. And some teachers are going to have to structure their lessons a little differently based on the realities that are going on in their own homes. And we're going to do our best to make sure that every kid gets the best possible education they can. But it's going to look a little different in different situations.
Great, thank you, Chris. Then the next question is, some colleges are changing the grading system to pass-fail. Is GCDS considering this, or will grading remain the same?
Our grading is going to remain the same for now. If we, reading through the 140 student surveys that we gave out yesterday, most of them are describing a situation where their education is going on not radically different than the way it was when we were in school together, except for the person-to-person interaction. That is sorely missing by far. But they understand that whether it's 30 minutes or 15 minutes, the whole class instructional time sets them up for them to work well in small groups and individually on their projects and assigned work. Math is proving a little more challenging in that they want more time with math teachers sort of as a whole class. But other than that, I think we're well set up for this kind of work. And right now our expectation is that we can continue to grade them as we have. We will adjust that if that proves to be something that we have to, that's not working as well. We're going to get through the interim reports, which are April 9th. That'll give an estimate of where students are with grades. If we need to scale back in certain classes or across the board, we will. We're not chained to this, but we certainly think right now we can grade kids the way we have prior to the whole remote learning experience.
Agreed. And if I could add to that, Chris, it's almost impossible to make a change from going from pass-fail back to regular grades. That's a challenging one to make, right? Once children start into pass-fail. If you keep them in grades, the decision can be made later on to switch to pass-fail, and that's okay for them, right? That's an easy switch to make. So let's say, probably not going to happen, but we're back in school in 2 weeks, right? They've only missed 3 weeks of school. There's no reason for us to be on a different schedule than we're on right now, grading-wise. So our plan right now is to keep things going as they are. They'll get their interim grades coming up. It ends next Friday. You'll get them 4 days later. And from there, we're talking about these things and we're having conversations about it. But right now, the plan is to see how we can do it with grades in the classroom.
Thank you.
Same in the middle school.
Perfect. Adam, the next two are for you. The first one's a comment and the next one's a question. So the first comment is, Adam has just reinforced my kid's view that Mr. Rohde hates snow.
So true.
And then the second one is, what if starting school in the fall becomes a gray area? Would you be open to allowing parents to choose if they're comfortable sending them back or not, and let those kids who are still home continue online learning, even if some do choose to return to school?
Really tough question. Not sure I could answer that at this point. I think we'd have to figure that out at the time. I don't think you could run a school both real in school time and online school at the same time. Or certainly not with the same teaching staff. This is a yeoman's lift to do this remotely, and then to try to do this while you're then also running classes during the day. Maybe I haven't thought that far down the road. So I promise I'll start thinking about that.
Okay. I think this next question is a really good one. It says, also to Flynn's comment about transitioning, the academic screen time is leaking over and into non-academic overuse. Very hard to get them off screens and out of their rooms after school hours are done for the day. Typically, we have much more family time together in the evenings than we do now, but maybe that's just because we all need more space from each other during social distancing. Seriously, are other families seeing family dynamic changes like this? Any ideas from GCDS specialists on how to help children and parents best adjust to these changes? So, my first thought is, and I said this in the earlier forum, and there's a part of me that struggles when I say this, and that's that I am so worried about social isolation and the emotional impact on the kids, that if they're jumping on any kind of computer video game and it's socially related, that I'm actually okay with this. And any of you who know me know that I've gone into every single high school classroom and talked to the kids about the dangers and what it does to the brain, what technology does and the phone does. And I've had conversation after conversation about no TikTok and no FaceTime and no Facebook and no. And now, from a social emotional perspective, I am so worried about some of these pieces and the possibility for real trauma and real anxiety and real depression that I'm okay with them engaging in more technology as long as it's socially related. Any thoughts on that, Laura or Polly?
I just would echo what you're saying. I mean, I say the same thing in the middle school all the time, but in some ways, in particular, our girls certainly play video games, but the boys seem to do it more. And it's almost a saving grace that this is how they have always connected socially. This is how they have fun together and engage. As much as we all didn't like it before, in some ways, this is a lovely built-in way that they already have going. That being said, I hear what you're saying, Kathy, and you know, I think everyone's saying, let's all be flexible right now and give ourselves a break. And that being said, though, if dinner time and extended dinner time is something that you don't want to bend on, then that's where you don't bend. And then maybe they do go off and do a little bit more time online than you're comfortable with normally. But no reason why you shouldn't have that time to some degree that you like as a family, as long as it's working for all of you in that moment.
If I could just speak a little bit to this. My question is not so much about video games. I think during the break, I was more concerned about video games.
Mm-hmm.
It's, constant house party with 6 or 7 kids, which I think is great. And I'm glad they are using these tools to connect. I think my question is more about just the family, the dynamic of the family as a whole. We used to spend a lot of evening hours together in the family room, and we might have all been looking at screens or looking at the same screen, but now there's a big retreat to the bedrooms and the doors closed, kind of like it is during the school day when we're giving them space to study and work by themselves. So I think for us, it's more just there's a really different vibe in the house right now in terms of family dynamics. And I'm not sure, maybe it's just that I'm new to having a teenager in the house or 2 teenagers in the house. Maybe this is normal for parents with other kids, but I'm wondering how we all kind of navigate that part of it.
The piece, the normal piece that you're saying, I mean, that is absolutely where they should be developmentally, is, craving those friendships, and that becomes such a focus in a healthy developmental kind of way. But I hear what you're saying. It's harder to sort of pick apart what is wanting to just be on technology versus healthy, that healthy sort of push away a little bit that you would expect with early teenagers. I don't know, Jeff, what else do you want to add with that?
I'm just sitting here thinking that this is a toughie, because if there's family time, I still want that family time to exist.
Yeah.
And so my thought is, this might be a really great discussion at the dinner table, which is exactly how you put it, which is, hey, I've noticed that the dynamics in our family have really switched. And I'm wondering what you all think and how you're feeling about it. This is how I'm feeling about it. I'm really missing our family time. And what do we do about it? I think it opens up a wonderful discussion, a therapeutic discussion, a healthy discussion that the family then gets to brainstorm and talk about together. And if it's a real shift from what you used to do as a family, I would say have that discussion sooner rather than later and see what you can't do as a family to problem solve that system.
It's a great idea. Thank you.
Hey, Kathy, one more, just
Yes.
speaking from the eye here and about our family, and one of the things that we've done. I mean, my kids are a lot younger, right? Like Will is 5 years older than my oldest, or 6 years older than my oldest. But we talk to teachers a lot about ritualizing parts of their class, like ritualize when you assign homework, ritualize the way that you start your class, because it sort of creates these sacred moments at different parts of the class that the class hangs on to. The whole dynamic of the class hangs on to those moments. So one of the things our family, since all this has started, has ritualized is we go out and even if it's raining and horrible out, we'll go out and take a walk every day as a family. And without fail, I got 4 kids, and without fail, every single day, one of them melts down and tries to rage against that ritual with every fiber of their being. And Kate and I, my wife and I, just try not to allow that kid to sabotage it that day. But what I can say is that every day now, what they expect is for us to engage in that little ritual. And it's been a really great way for us to sort of preserve that aspect of our dynamic that wasn't It's consistent with what our family dynamic has always been, but a daily walk has never been a part of our rituals before. And so maybe looking to see ways to ritualize your togetherness so that they're sort of sacred and not vulnerable to the stress that comes with these weird times.
You know, one thing I would say to that, and then I want to stop because I don't want to monopolize this, but we created a daily ritual of a walk during the 2-week break when we were home and, you know, socially distancing. And what my oldest said to me yesterday when I said, come on, it's time for a walk, he said, I can't, I have much too much homework. And I said, you haven't been out of the house for 5 days. We've got to get out. So, you know, that's where I just think it's different. It's evolving. The whole situation evolves. What happened in the world 3 weeks ago is not what happened for the last 2 weeks and is not what's happening this week. And it's going to continue to change. So
when Will says that, you tell him Mr. Corson said the walk is more important than the homework.
He's the one who loves going out. He knows that. He knows. Thank you.
So before I keep reading the questions, I'm just being wary of the time, and I can see it's 3 o'clock, and I think we may lose some of our administrators to other meetings. So I'm willing to stay on for a little bit longer and answer some of these questions if I can, if they're from a social emotional perspective. But I don't know if there are any questions in here, Flynn, Chris, Rick, Marshall, that you saw that were directly related to you, and if you want to answer them quickly and then hop on off, or if you need to hop on off right now, feel free.
I need to hop off because I've got a 3 o'clock meeting that can't start till I start it. Weird new world. And so I would ask if anybody, I didn't get a chance to scroll through all the questions, but if there's a question there that someone would like me to answer, please just copy it and stick it in an email, and either we can set up our own Zoom meeting or I can answer through email. I'm happy to do that. I got to jump off now. So sorry. Thank you very much for everyone for being here.
I'm in the same boat as, oh, go ahead, Rick.
I miss all of you. I wish I could see your children in person, but it's nice seeing them in these little Brady Bunch boxes. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Rick.
I'm going to sign off too, but have a great night, everybody. I'll see you at the next one. And thanks again for hanging in there with us. Stay safe and healthy. Be well.
Thank you, Flynn.
And I'm going to run too, but I made a couple notes in the chat. I saw suggestions of math club, coding club, journaling about their experiences while they're kind of experience all of this right now. And I think those are all good suggestions that I'm going to bring back to the appropriate people in the middle school. So those were great, and you can keep the suggestions coming. We're looking for things to do outside of academic time right now. So all of those are really good suggestions that I think will add to just everything that's happening. So thanks again.
Thanks, Marshall. All right, so it looks like you are left just with the mental health people. And lovely enough, I actually have the 3 of you right across the top of my screen, so I can see your faces directly. I'm going to keep reading some of these questions, but I'm looking at the first one, and it's about tests. And are we implementing a browser lockdown? I don't know how to answer that question. So that would be a question for the admin on that one. The next one is, for a kid that is already quiet, I was hoping that the return to school after spring break would give him a little more time to come out of his shell. What are your suggestions to help promote connections with teachers and students, and what opportunities, if any, is GCDS considering?
I think that's a great question, and I think Marshall sort of hit on that a little bit before he had to pop off. We are definitely, I've been in, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 meetings this week and separate side conversations trying to think about the best ways to offer opportunities outside of their academic work, ways for example, middle school kids to give back to and do things for the kids in the lower elementary and the upper elementary, things that the high school kids are looking to do to offer for the middle school kids to sort of give them an opportunity to talk about things that are on their minds. So those are all in the works, and trying to figure out the best way to roll that out that does not put any more onus on the teachers and more on some of us who are not actively teaching all day, and that can provide these opportunities in a way that won't overload the Zoom that it's on, but that makes, I think, our kids, the middle and upper school kids, feel really good and have a good time in creating things that might unite them in the process of helping the younger kids. So that's happening. Just stay tuned for that. We really wanted to get through this week and get your feedback about what's working and not working before we added more on. But we are absolutely thinking on the same line for that one. And the other thing I would just say about the teachers is that some of the teachers are also thinking about ways. I mean, we've had all sorts of ideas. I don't want to say them because if it doesn't happen, I don't want someone to get excited and then that particular idea doesn't roll. But lots of different ideas. You know, we have lots of teachers who are self-described nerds and just can't wait to put out some of their passions and see what kids want to join, like a Zoom that day to talk about that kind of stuff. But also most teachers, I believe, in the middle and I believe at the high school are offering sort of breakout sessions. Is that the right word, Jeff? So that if you need a little bit more one-on-one time with anything that they're learning, those sessions are available. Sometimes students are not opting to go into those sessions, which is fine, but please know that most teachers are offering that, and we are keeping track of who's, didn't attend or didn't show up, whether the right word is, in class that day, or whose homework is not in, so that we can see if there's any kind of pattern emerging. And those teachers will be reaching out, or probably have reached out. So that might be one of those conversations, again, not a yes or no, did you reach out to Mr. or Miss So-and-so, but like, hey, what's it like at Country Day with the online learning? Like if you're confused, what do you do? Like how's that work? Because those opportunities are there, and it is a nice way to connect one-on-one. I'm actually hearing from teachers already that they have really enjoyed those chunks of time, 10, 15 minutes, that they might not necessarily get with some students, and really enjoying that piece of it. And I think it's helpful for the students.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Laura. I think the school is really taking the time and the effort to try to think this through. Some of the hard part might be the logistics of it and how it will really roll out and whether or not it will happen. But I know that the school is spending a lot of time in conversations about it. So thank you, Laura. That was very helpful. Flynn sent me a private message here that says, it looks like Wynn McDaniel keeps raising her hand. I don't know what that means. Maybe I missed it. Wynn, are you on this call still? And if you are, will you unmute and ask your question?
I think she dropped off.
Now I feel so bad. I don't know how I missed that. Okay, maybe all classes can be held on Zoom even in the fall for those kids who aren't returning, or even those who are homesick for a few days. I think Adam answered that by saying he didn't know. And so I'll leave that one there. Mindy, looks like you had a question for Flynn. So I'll leave, I'll read it. It says, Flynn, I also think all types of stimulation are good. I love how the woodworking teacher gave them the option to buy supplies. Yay, Amazon. Good plug there. To continue projects, such a great idea. I heard him lecturing about types of wood yesterday and my kid was completely engaged. These things are important too. Hopefully we can get coding club and math club going again too. He is missing all aspects of school. I will tell you that the school is thinking about considering all of these things and trying to find different ways to keep all of our kids connected and engaged. Kristen, this was a message for Kathy. We totally have a different dynamic in our house, mostly for better, but sometimes for worse. We just try to keep reminding them and ourselves that we are living history right now. It's a great comment. And they will be telling their grandchildren about this too. Polly and Laura, thoughts about that?
I think it's a great perspective on it to let our kids know, and it also lets them know that while we are here for them, that we don't have all the answers and that we are adjusting as time goes on as well. And again, I think Jeff said this before, these are some truths, and it's okay to not have all the answers, and okay to let them know that, yeah, I worry about it too. But here's what works for me when I get worried. Let's figure out and help you figure out what works for you.
Great. I'm looking at a lot of these comments at the end here are all thank yous. The last comment here is, what happened to the after school club? Are we able to continue some meetings via Zoom? I'm not sure what that question is about. Nellie, are you still on here? Laura, Polly, do you have any idea what happened to the after school clubs?
Well, the only thing I'd say is for the elementary school kids, we used to offer afters. So I don't know what that looks like for middle school, Laura.
I think there's some robotics and those types of clubs that the kids just love, and I bet they're so missing that. I am sure it is, again, I keep saying this, being talked about. I don't have the answer, especially about the robotics, but we've got a really talented faculty in those areas, and if it can be done, they will find a way to do it. We just might have to wait a little bit.
I can tell you that at the high school level, we've assigned the 3 to 4 hour for clubs to get together. So my 2 clubs at the high school are Kindness Club and the Psychology Club. And so we meet at least once a week and get together. We end up meeting more than that to talk about different things that we can bring to our student body, but we are still getting together. So I am guessing that the yearbook club is still, that Julie Cast has somehow set that up and is still meeting with those students, because that time was specifically set up for us to do the clubs, at least at the high school level. Okay, that looks like it for questions. I want to thank everybody, and hopefully we'll keep doing these. I hope they're helpful and useful, and I appreciate all your time, and thank you to Polly, and thank you, Laura. And again, if you have any questions or concerns for any of us, please email us, give us a call. We're here for you.
Please do.
Yep. Be safe, be healthy, everybody.
Say hi to your kids for us. We missed them.
Bye, everyone.